This is a more practical, real world, grounded statement. Let's say we had two options. They just invented a brand new kind of white paint. It's a super white paint. It's so white, it reflects almost all the light that shines on it. So if you paint it on your roof, it reflects the light of the sun so much so that you might not even need an air conditioner. Are we making sense of that as a very practical, real world, adaptive technology process that a masculine energy might, or at least a technologized human, masculine or feminine, might well see as, well, that's the antidote to climate change right there, or at least a part of it. And then we would also say, that there are other ways. There are many other ways to solve for climate change, and one of them is to plant more trees. And if we plant enough trees, then they absorb the carbon and they create more oxygen and they cool the planet because the sun doesn't bake the earth, because the trees are receiving the light and turning them through photosynthesis into oxygen and processing the carbon out. So our question is, does it make sense? There's a very different process of decision making that operates in human beings between these two very different dynamics. And does humanity have a bias towards painting buildings white rather than planting more trees? If we consider planting a tree, we immediately shift into resonance with parts of our systems that are attached to life, to the biosystem, the ecosystem, the planet, to thinking and feeling from nature, from resonance with the natural beauty of our world, the natural life process of our world, in harmony with our world, birthing and bringing life into the world through our choices. And by choosing to literally plant a tree, for the time that we're doing that planting of the tree, at least, we're in touch literally with the earth, the dirt, the topsoil, the grass, the tree. We're required to become, to some degree, participative with that process of life-giving dynamic, whether we're planting a tree or planting seeds in the world that will grow and germinate. By planting the tree, we're considering future generations, and they're having the option of experiencing nature, experiencing the natural world that we're currently accelerating away from into our cities and into our technologies and into concrete and steel and asphalt and plastic and tech and computers. So this derivation of reality that like right now they're talking about the metaverse, this completely artificial reality that they're hoping, some companies are hoping human beings will lose themselves in or become so participative in that it becomes a new way of monetizing computers. So how disassociated from nature is that as a potential path of evolution for humanity and future generations? So this is our challenge. Are people who are very technologically oriented, in a way, potentially biased in that regard? Do holistic doctors want to prevent illness before it occurs by keeping the system in balance and in harmony? And does a surgeon want to do surgery? So deal with stuff after it's already become an issue. We're not advocating, both are necessary. We're not advocating one over the other. we're juxtaposing those for understanding purposes. And that said, if we paint buildings white, they will reflect the sun. And that will mean, in the short term, less heating of the planet, less melting of the ice caps, less destruction of California through heat and drought and forest fires, perhaps. And that said, is it also necessary to plant trees? So we would suggest that both of these are real work. And we would suggest that we're saying planting trees is a beautiful thing. And do people who plant trees have a bias towards planting trees? Can we say that real work is in the eye of the beholder, and via their preferences, their values, their experience base, and they may be ignorant of other ways of doing real work? So we would suggest that both are real work. And if one has a bias and sees everything through that lens, then they would see the other way of solving the issues in the world as either unreal, of less value, less valid, less important, less meaningful, or less of a good choice or decision. And that they would try to have their bias drive the decision-making of the collective. So whether one has a bias towards a technological solution or one has a bias towards a natural solution, that both are biases. And we would suggest that any polarized duality, right, wrong, good, bad, safe, unsafe, live, die, accepted, abandoned, are extremes that are never real or true, because they end up in a polarized positionality of trying to just call something wrong if it's not right, according to the interpretive lens of rightness, or to call something real versus unreal. Or if someone says I'm a realist, and that means if anyone doesn't agree with my definition of what's real, that they're not realists, and that their reality is not reality, and mine is more real than their real. my version of reality is more real than their version of reality. So we would suggest that there is a middle ground, and that life is more a spectrum of options and evolutionary possibility co-creatively arrived at, and that any fixed positionality is going to yield a battle or a disagreement or a betterness approach that says, my way is real and yours is not, my way is right and yours is wrong, my way is better and yours is less than, my way is the way things should be and your way is the way things should not be. So we would suggest that as we all learn together, our quality of understanding will inform our choices beyond duality, beyond right, wrong, good, bad, safe, unsafe, real, unreal, acceptable and unacceptable. And that flexibility is not a expression of nihilism. It's not an expression of being valueless or not guided by spirituality or values or love. It is something that creates space for the flowers to bloom and nurtures them at the same time. So these items on the screen are attempts to point to this understanding of different ways of solving problems or of generating a sustainable, beautiful life on this planet. They all matter. They all have some degree of utility. The consciousness, wisdom, and discernment and loving, compassionate vantage point from which we arrive at whatever our choices or decisions will be generative of future health and wholesomeness and balance and harmony with the planet, or not. Some will be more harmonious with the planet than others. Paradoxically, if we said technology and manufacturing and all of that is bad or wrong, And the only thing that matters is planting trees, and we're all going to go out and plant trees today. In a short time, most of the population would starve to death out of lack of focusing on production of food, or we would die of the heat or the cold because we weren't manufacturing electricity. Are we making sense with that? Assuming that any polar single-pointed focus is not the antidote to all of our needs all at the same time. Now, we're going to add a layer of complexity to this. So let's say that there is great effect, and we didn't mention, there are people who are contemplating painting. They've literally contemplated painting the ice in Antarctica with white paint on the poles of the planet in order to reduce the melting of the ice caps. So this is the question that we would ask, even in regard to whatever paint we would use. Many of our chemicals that we use today have forever chemicals, long chain carbon atoms in them. So is it important that if we're going to use super white paint that's going to reflect the light, that it not be full of carcinogens that are going to then go into the environment? And if we're going to use any kind of paint to paint the ice caps on both sides of the planet, it's important that it not be toxic white paint. So this second bullet point that says, what determines our choices and what we prioritize solving? Is it prioritized by how much money it's going to make us? And the fourth bullet, must we be able to control the world and use it and monetize it and the associated solutions? We can make money from the paint and its application. Do we make money from the trees? Now, believe it or not, the tiny food forest process and other agroecological efforts are, in a way, to a degree, not completely, to a degree, mechanisms of monetizing restoration of the planet.